Hey everyone, this is Natalie Ye. Welcome to BeyondBlockPunch.com. You can visit me at BeyondBlockPunch.com or at SayYeh, SayYeh.com. Today's blog post is kind of interesting. I'm going to share something that's very personal and a topic that's very vulnerable for me. So bear with me on this. But it's interesting how everything worked out and how I was able to make some of the connections emotionally and psychologically, and I'd like to share that with everybody today. So before I transition, I try to prove to everyone I was this, guy who could keep up with all my friends and do sports and race cars and all this stuff. And cars for me was a very big part of my compensation. Just like how I think there are a lot of gays and trans people in the military because they're trying to prove something. And an example of that would be a friend of mine who, before she transitioned, she actually deliberately got arrested just so she could spend a night in jail, because at the time she was convinced that if she spent a night in jail, it would like man her up and help her get rid of the feeling inside that she wanted to transition into a woman. So for me, it was cars and basketball and womanizing, and I broke a lot of hearts, and I tried to make amends after I transitioned, but I did a lot of things that I wasn't very proud of. And one of the things with the car was I used it similar to how people use an addiction. Now, we all know when you drive fast, even just on the regular roads, you can get a adrenaline high and everything. But for me, it was like I was so bottled up. I was not willing to deal with any aspect of my feelings or emotions, that throughout the weeks while I was at work or when I was at school or whatever, I'd be upset or depressed, and I'd tell myself, don't feel it. Just block it all out and live in these compartments where I would have my boy life and have this Oscar-worthy acting job where my girlfriend thought I was a guy, my parents thought I was who I presented, and I kept all of that angst hidden and bottled up, and I let myself have one day out of the month at the racetrack, where I would just go balls out and just keep my foot on the pedal and just roast the tires and get all this adrenaline and aggression out, as if I could just eat 30 days of food in one day. It's like we're supposed to, as humans, feel things as they come up and process them when we can. And instead, I was logging everything to one weekend and blowing it all off with the car. And so the car for me was like a cocaine hit or heroin shot, where I would come back from the track just absolutely exhausted. Now, part of that is like when we go to Disneyland or Magic Mountain and we ride roller coasters. Yeah, our body's gonna be kind of tired. But for me, it would take days where I'd be at work, like at Boeing or Northrop, doing my engineering job, and I wouldn't be able to focus, and I would just kind of be dazed, almost like I was overdosed or something. And it would take me a couple days before I came back to homeostasis and back to equilibrium. So for the longest time, I just called it a passion, and I insisted that for me, cars was this way for me to, it was one of my big passions. It was a hobby. I got to meet people. I rationalized it a lot. So needless to say, when I transitioned, the car sat in the garage for 6 years. Since 2011, it has sat in the garage. And only this February of 2017, after six full years, I was finally able to go into the garage and deal with it. Now, I live by myself and I have a one-car garage, so I had to park that car at my mom's place. And when I would go there for the last 6 years, for dinner or just to visit her and my dad, sometimes I would see the car in the garage. They'd have the garage door open, or I need to go in the garage to get something, and I would see it, and it would just completely break me down, and sometimes I would cry, sometimes I would... Basically, the car held a lot of emotions for me. It felt like an abusive ex-boyfriend or something that I had to revisit and deal with. And I put about $20 to $25,000 of parts into the car in terms of upgrades and everything. And my mom was like, you don't even want to race anymore. Why don't you just sell it? But like any other human, I was struggling to let go. I just wanted that one last high at the track. I wanted to go to the racetrack one more time and say goodbye to it. And the problem was, when I first transitioned in 2011, the car had a clutch problem. And the only guys I really trusted was one of my old mechanics who had met me before, obviously, when I was building the car and having them build the car. And I was so worried about them not accepting me as a trans woman. All these dialogues and monologues went through my head where I was convinced, oh, they would say something really nasty to me when I got there, or maybe they wouldn't recognize me for the first few minutes and then they would go crazy. So I kept hesitating, and I just kept putting it off, and I didn't want to deal with it. So this car, even though I didn't deal with it, was in the back of my mind for 6 years, just gnawing away at me, to the point where the last 4 or 5 months of 2016 and the beginning of 2017, I had dreams about it. And I finally said, you know what, I need to deal with it. And I got a shout out to my friend John and Patty, who, when I had dinner with them a few months ago, they told me, the next time you see the car in your garage or at your mom's garage, just deal with it. Like, just go for it, And a lot of times people see overnight successes, or what they assume are overnight successes, or somebody who blows up on the internet or whatever. Sometimes there are people that get lucky, I admit that. But when someone looks like they're an overnight success, I can guarantee you there's usually about 2 to 3 years worth of work, sometimes more, behind that. And it looks like an overnight success for those of us who didn't participate in the whole process and the journey to get there. But I can assure you, for me, it took 6 years of talking to therapists and dealing with myself and writing about it to finally be able to deal with this car. So I finally had an old coworker who was very sweet. He came over and helped me load it onto the trailer, and I got the clutch fixed. And I went to the racetrack in February, a few months ago, and within 10 minutes, I knew, like, on the track, I was not only very rusty, but even when I was drifting okay and doing fine with the turns and stuff, I wanted to pose with the car more in, like, high heels and a skirt, and have my friend, who's a professional photographer, come and take photos of me with my car before I sell it, and have this, like, last hurrah with memorabilia of this nice photo with me all sexy next to the car. Then drive the car. So that to me was a huge sign that I didn't really want to be at the track anymore. And then, of all things, the car ended up getting messed up. Part of the wiring harness that connects to the clutch to allow the car to start got torn out because the mechanic who worked on it didn't tuck it in really well, and it got torn out. So I had to put the car back on the trailer and come back to my place, and the car sat in the garage again for a few weeks, and I finally took it out to another shop, got it fixed. And a lot of these shops, I don't know if before I transitioned for sure they were shady because they sensed I was feminine or I was this guy who was kind of soft or whatever. But ever since I transitioned and have been taking it to shops, it's been just as bad. I mean, they're nice at first, but I don't know if it's because I'm trans or if it's because, it's just I think the community is very shady and full of a lot of people that are dishonest, but that's just me and my experience. Maybe for other people it's been different. But, I had these 4 tires on there that were virtually new, and when I got the car back from this shop, the 2 rear tires were completely bald. I could see the steel belts, and there was no traction left. So, they used my tires and then put 2 of their old ones on there, I guess, which to me was pretty shady. So I got the car back and I took it to this place that needs to have it tuned because it's been sitting so long and the tune was a little off from there before. So it's been sitting for 6 years. I just want to get the car running well before I sold it. And when I took it to the shop to get tuned, the mechanic there noticed that the engine was hot. He opened the radiator and there was steam coming out. So it was obviously running hot already, and the engine had been on for 10-15 minutes. But the readout on his laptop was still saying the engine was cold. And he said something was wrong. So as we checked the vacuum lines and the water channels going through the radiator and the coolant level and everything, we found out that the guy who built the car before had pockets of water that didn't even circulate, so it would stay warm, it would stay cold and give an inaccurate readout, but other parts of the engine were roasting up, and so the tune wouldn't even be accurate. So he told me, well, I got to fix all this, so it's going to cost you about $1,500, and I just wanted to get rid of the car right then and there. I just, even if it was for less money, I would lose a couple grand. I just want to get rid of it right then and there. I thought it was the universe again telling me, is this where I want to put my energy? Is this what I want to do with my time? And the answer is no. So I initially wanted to just sell it right then and there. But, again, my ego wouldn't let me just let go. I wanted that one more time at the track, and I was so close. Let's just get it tuned, and then you could get more money for it and all this stuff. And it was that night when I went home and I was showering, I had this story go through my head, and this is what I want to share with you guys, which is when I was in AFIO, when I was at UC Berkeley my junior year, I joined this service fraternity that we volunteered at a football tournament called Air It Out. And many of you probably know about it. It's run all over the country and stuff. And it's 3-on-3 football, and we were the volunteers who were the referees. I didn't know much about football, I still don't, but I knew enough to be able to call the game. And this one guy who was playing that day he was this big 6'4" Sicilian guy, and he had this tattoo along his biceps that said Sicilian Soldier on each arm. And I could tell he was very much in shape and very intimidating. And a lot of the girls in the fraternity that I was kind of interested in dating were flirting with him. So I got jealous, and I was still living as a guy at the time. So for me, I wanted to prove that I could hang with him too. So when it was the second half and the score was very close and they scored a touchdown, I blew my whistle and I said, hey, that touchdown is incomplete. Your foot was slightly out of bounds. Now, to this day, I'll be honest with you, I'm not completely sure. I was on the other side of mid court, and the other referee, this African American kid who I had just met, was also volunteering, but he was only like 5'4", was closer to the action, and he said it was good and I said it was bad. I think subconsciously, to be honest, I was deliberately trying to screw over this guy just to make a point and be a jerk. And this guy lost it and grabbed the football and just threw it onto the ground, and it happened to bounce towards me, and I caught it, and I was like, hey, you better watch it. I'm the ref, and you just threw the football at me. You need to calm down. He's like, screw you, man. Screw you. You totally messed with us, and like the second half is almost over. There's only a little bit of time left on the clock, and you're going to cost us the game, and it's all your fault. You're a total asshole, and I should kick your ass right now. And I just snapped. I was like, you know what? And I threw the football back down to him. I was like, you know what? You want to start some shit? Let's go. I was like, you want to fight? I'm ready. Let's go. And we were about 10 feet apart, and he was starting to walk towards me. And right at that instant, I was like, oh my God, what did you just do? Like, you're going to totally get your ass kicked. Even though I did martial arts when I was a kid, this guy was twice my size and probably twice my weight. And I just knew I was a goner. I signed up for something that was totally going to cream me or destroy me. And yet I was just going to go through with it because I had so much to prove. I had this masculine, dick-swinging energy that just, for me, ego was more important than my well-being at that time. And I probably would have lost a couple of teeth had it not been at the last minute before we were about to, lock arms and start swinging at each other. the guy Will, the African American guy I was volunteering with, ran in between us and pushed us apart and put his hands on both of our chests and said, "Hey guys, come on, man! Like, there are kids around here and there's families watching the game. Come on, man, calm down. It's just a game. Let's relax. I'm going to discuss the call with my volunteer here and then we'll talk to you. You need to stand over there." So he pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, dude, what are you doing? That guy would have totally wasted you and kicked your ass." And I said, "I don't care, man. I'm just pissed off right now." And this was what was going through my head when I was showering the night of realizing at the mechanic shop that I would have to do all this work with him to fix the car, to get it running. And I realized in order for me to hold on to my car, I'd have to go back into that boy space from before I transitioned. And going back into boy space and signing up for it with something and continuing to hold on to stuff that isn't good for me or will cream me is the exact same thing I did at the Air It Out event back in 1999, 18 years ago. So here I was, my subconscious was relating how I was feeling that night a couple weeks ago at the shop. The same way it brought up the memory from 1999 when I was volunteering and signing up for something that was trying to be, an over-masculating thing or an event that would set me up for disaster and probably wind up hurting me, but I went forward with it anyway. And then the following day when I went to work, the continuation of this was, I was like, well, then maybe I could just sell the race car and get like a convertible on the weekends, like an M3 or like a some sort of nice convertible with a lot of power so I could still at least drive it on the streets on the weekends and stuff. And I realized that again was signing up for a car that is going to be high maintenance, something I don't really want to do, and somewhere where I don't want to put my energy. So, I thought that was very interesting, and I just wanted to mention this to everybody and share with everybody that when we're self-aware of where our emotions are and where we're coming from and what old patterns we're engaging with or disengaging with, we can very much avoid hardships and do the work to get clear and grow. And I have a friend on the East Coast that always says, everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And here I was wanting my cake and eating it too, meaning I wanted to keep the race car, but have none of the drawbacks of my old addiction and shifting of my homeostasis. So noticing that I was bringing up old memories that were similar to how I was feeling that night with Air It Out, the football tournament where I was volunteering and almost got my ass kicked, serves as a powerful reminder that maybe instead of fighting the guy and throwing the football at him and saying, "Hey, let's duke it out," I should put on some makeup and tie my hair back and wear a skirt and bring some pom-poms and go cheer on a football game rather than try and fight some guy that I'm not interested in fighting. And the same thing with the car. I don't need to hold on to this car. I think it's done. And again, I'm more interested in posing with it than driving it. So I think I have my answer. And I just want to share that with you guys because we all have moments in our lives where we have trouble letting go. And I think this story may help other people realize that the connections are there when we're willing to look at them. So again, this is Natalie. Thank you so much for listening. And till next time, please visit my website at beyondblockpunch.com. And I'll see you guys all later. Bye-bye.